NFC East division. It's still up for grabs. It's between Dallas, Washington, and the Giants. And before we get started, I'm surprised the Cowboys are even in this. They were 3-9 3 weeks ago. They're on the 3-game win streak. They're 6-9 right now. We were talking about Mike McCarthy only lasting a year with Dallas a couple of weeks ago. Now we're talking about how are they going to look with Dak and with all the other pieces they have, including the draft. There's a chance they can make the playoffs. I was surprised they beat the Eagles how they did, because Jalen Hurts looked like he was about to light up that defense early on. Then he really played, pretty bad towards the end. So, okay, the three scenarios we mentioned it. Washington just needs to win. If they win, they're in. The Giants have to win, and the Cowboys also have to win. Plus, they need a Washington loss. So, in your opinion, who is going to win the NFC East? The Washington football team, the Cowboys, or the Giants?
Well, the two things I want to say first, I want to give credit to Mike McCarthy because we were very hard on him the last time we spoke about him, and I think that was deservedly so with everything that was happening, but they have really turned the corner. That offense is looking really good, all things considered, missing your quarterback who was having such a great season, but they've really impressed me over the past couple weeks, putting up a fight when it seemed like they were dead and buried, and although I don't have them making it, I do want to give them credit for a nice job turning around their season, and I think that gives them good momentum going into next year, which I think that's going to be very good for them going into next season, looking ahead. I'm going to say I'm making these decisions based on Alex Smith starting, because if Alex Smith doesn't start, everything becomes a little bit more blurry, but I have the Washington football team beating the Eagles, so I think that that's going to be what secures their spot. I do have the Giants beating the Cowboys, so even if the Washington football team were to lose, I think the Giants would take that spot. But if Alex Smith is on the field on Sunday, I think the Washington football team brings home this division.
Because I'm not sure if Alex Smith is going to play or not, I'm just going by the scenario that he's not playing. I don't think he's going to play. I could be wrong, but I just don't think he's going to play. Dwayne Haskins isn't there anymore. And that other quarterback, I forgot his name,
Taylor Heineke.
Taylor Heineke. I don't believe in him at all, because even though the Eagles have been bad this season, it's more so Doug Peterson's play calling and how he manages the offense than it is their defense. Their defense is okay. And against a horrible Washington offense, if they have Taylor Heineke out there, they won't be able to do nothing all game. Nothing all game.
Yeah.
And that's really been the storyline. They did nothing all game against the Panthers. It was really ugly to watch. Because of that, I think the Dallas Cowboys make the playoffs.
Wow.
Yeah, I think they beat the Giants, especially if the Giants start Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is a turnover machine. Dallas defense has been playing a little bit better recently. And I just think the Cowboys are going to make it. It's my gut feeling. It would be a great storyline if the Cowboys were to make it, because they're America's team mostly, but I think they're one of those teams that are getting hot right now. We saw the Giants, they went on a little stretch where, people have to watch out for the Giants. Then Daniel Jones came back. He played bad. Colt McCoy started the next week. He played bad. Daniel Jones has played bad again. So now they're on a cold streak. You look at Washington, Alex Smith had that team rolling. Then they lost him, and now they're going downhill. And because of the continuity of those teams, I feel like Dallas has the most consistency and continuity of those two teams, and that's why I think Dallas will make it. I think Andy Dalton's finally finding his footing inside the offense, and when you have that type of offensive firepower, I know that the Giants' defense has been good, but I think they've more been good based off matchups and some game planning. I think Dallas can beat them.
I like the point that you made about continuity, because Dallas really does look best in that area. But let me ask you, if Alex Smith is starting, would that change your mind?
Yes. If Alex Smith is starting, I think that game would be closer, because I thought that Washington, if they won last week, they would have been in. So I thought Washington, the Panthers were a gimme game. And because Alex Smith didn't play, that might have cost them the playoffs. This game is a little bit rougher. I think the Eagles and Giants, the Eagles and Washington is always a toss-up. Washington beat them in week 1, so there's an incentive for the Eagles to win this game. But also I want to say this. regardless of any of these teams, if they miss the playoffs, I think that can be the best case scenario for them because they aren't very good teams and they need a higher pick in the draft. And them making the playoffs is going to really put them way behind in the draft order because Washington needs a quarterback, the Giants need a quarterback, and Dallas needs some offensive lineman help or defensive help. So I don't know. I think it is a good story if any of these teams make the playoffs, but the best thing for them is not to make it.
Yeah, and the craziest thing I read the other day was I'm pretty sure it was the Cowboys, depending on what happens on Sunday, could either be picking as high as 3 or in the playoffs. So it's really a big difference between, the range of what could end up happening to them. But I agree. I think that personally, I think that Washington would benefit most from a playoff appearance, whereas the Giants and the Cowboys would benefit the most from getting those higher picks, just because I think Washington can go out and sign a quarterback this offseason, and I think they're ready to compete next year.
Yep.
But I think the Giants and the Cowboys, depending on what the Cowboys do this offseason, if they bring back Dak, whatever decisions they decide to make there, money-wise, with what Dak wants, I don't know if they're going to be able to make that work. So if both of them have to fill out that quarterback hole this offseason, I think it will be best for them to fall back in the draft.
Yeah, like the Giants and Washington, they need a quarterback.
Yeah.
They need a quarterback. Dallas, they don't need a quarterback, but it would be best if they get one because you're not going to be paying him anything if you get him in the draft.
Exactly.
And if you're picking up as high as 3, you could potentially land into a Justin Fields or a Zach Wilson or a Trey Lance, or even if you're picking later in the draft, you could probably land into like a Mac Jones. So, it's really gonna be a tough one because I think all 3 of these teams need quarterbacks. Although Dak Prescott is the only one that you don't really need one, but because of the money you're going to be paying him, you kind of want to draft one.
And I think that the Giants and Cowboys both have a few more holes to fill out than the Washington football team does. I think the Washington football team can get a quarterback and next year really be maybe not a Super Bowl contender, but can turn some heads next season. I think their offensive line can use a little bit of help. That defense, I think, has been awesome this season. So if they can get it, say they sign Dak Prescott next offseason, or they go out and get Derek Carr, which we've talked about a couple of times, just an established quarterback they bring in there, I think they're in very good shape. Whereas the Giants and Cowboys, I think they need a few more years. They have a few more holes to fill out. And the Giants have some cap space, so I think they're trending in the right direction. But I think the Giants, especially out of these 3 teams, need to find a quarterback because I don't think Daniel Jones is the guy.
I honestly think that Washington is farther than the Giants. I think the Giants are just a quarterback away.
Really?
Yeah, because you're getting Saquon. They don't have a number 1, but they have a bunch of number 2s. So they're getting Saquon back. Their defense has shown that they're really good. They re-signed Logan Ryan. Their defensive front is really good in terms of stopping the run, and Leonard Williams has been getting after the passer this season. Washington is more of a question mark. They're a quarterback away, plus another receiver to take pressure off of McLaurin, plus some offensive line. Yeah, I think Washington is a quarterback and receiver away from being like, a team that's has a winning record and getting into the playoffs versus a losing one this year and getting in. I think the Giants are a quarterback away, and I think the Cowboys are a defense away.
I think the problem with the Giants is, we were talking about this before with Dwayne Haskins and that situation. You said somebody tweeted they'd rather draft Jamarcus Russell than Jay Cutler, which is, I feel like, what the Giants are in right now. They have a guy who they might think is the future but might not be in Daniel Jones, and that might lead them to hang on to him for a little bit longer.
And that comparison came from, people are saying right now, because Dwayne Haskins got cut, that's why Daniel Jones was the right pick. It was the right pick over Dwayne Haskins, and I even said it. But then again, Washington now knows for sure, it's stamped, that they got to get a quarterback.
Yeah.
Giants are kind of on the fence. Whereas if you know who your quarterback is, if he's a bust, then you go out and get a quarterback. But because Daniel Jones is Daniel Jones, you're not sure. Same thing's happening with the Broncos right now with Drew Lock.
The Jets with Sam Darnold.
Like, potential is such a tricky word. And if you know your quarterback is not good, it's easier to move off from him versus if you know he's shown flashes versus if he hasn't. It's kind of a little bit more trickier. And the more you're in that funk, the more your team's going to be mediocre.
It's going to be very interesting because we've never seen a division like this where three teams, as bad as the division has been all season long, there are three teams that have been competitive enough to be in the hunt week 17 for the division spot, but also could land in the top 5 in the draft. So it's a very weird situation.